Okay, so I don't want to sound dramatic. I don't want to sound over the top. I don't want to use a lot of hyperbole. But I must say, this is my favorite Mac ever. And I'm not just saying that because it's the most expensive Mac or the heaviest Mac. No, this is my favorite Mac ever because it has so much room to grow. Check it out right now.
Thanks for watching 9 to 5 Mac. Be sure to thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and then enable notifications with the bell icon so you won't miss any upcoming videos.
All right, stop me if you've seen this spill before. All right, this is the Mac Pro box, of course. You have the little pull tab here. You actually destroy the shipping box it comes in, so I wish you the best if you have to send it back. I don't know what you would do in that case, but here it is, folks, the Mac Pro box. You can see the 10.2-inch iPad next to it just for scale. So we have these little Velcro straps here. This is a large box with a lot of cardboard to protect the Mac inside. But we have it unboxed here. This is the mouse and the lightning cable that comes with it. What's interesting is that this lightning cable is actually braided. It's probably the most high quality lightning cable Apple's ever made. This is the Magic Mouse, and you can see the black top, but it's also silver instead of space gray like the iMac Pro Magic Mouse. And the keyboard follows the same pattern, silver on black. For all you Raiders fans out there, let's go ahead and pull out the Mac Pro out of the box. Here is our Designed by Apple in California packet. Here is the power cable. It too is a braided cable. And this Designed by Apple in California packet is massive. You even get instructions on how to recycle the box that the Mac Pro comes in because it's massive as well. Here's that lovely regulatory sheet that we all love to read. And there we go, folks. The Apple stickers, supersized version in black. I don't know, has Apple ever made Apple stickers this large? Maybe they have. I feel like I've seen it before, but I just can't remember exactly what product they came with. Here is the getting started guide, and this is a serious getting started guide. It's actually almost like a little storybook. You can read it to your kids. It tells you how the Mac Pro was made, the philosophy behind the Mac Pro design, all that jazz. And I have to say, this is the nicest getting started guide that I've ever seen come with an Apple product. It's pretty legit. All right, so now let's unwrap the Mac Pro. All right, so we're all unwrapped and here it is, folks. The Mac Pro, it is heavy, by the way. I can see why they make wheels for it. Now, the first thing you're gonna notice about the Mac Pro is, of course, that beautiful aluminum housing with the little cheese grater design. It's arguably the most stunning piece of Mac hardware that Apple has ever produced. Visually and texture-wise, it's very appealing to the eyes and senses. Apple says that the lattice pattern found on the Mac Pro aluminum housing is a naturally occurring phenomenon in molecular crystal structures. In other words, they didn't just come up with it out of the blue. But the design has a purpose besides just looking good. It actually optimizes airflow, maximizing the Mac Pro's thermal capacity. And that's super important when you have a 28-core CPU inside this thing. Not to mention multiple dual GPUs. But like I said, it's not all about form, it's also about function. For instance, right there beneath the handles, you'll notice those little white strips. Those are actually antennas similar to the antenna lines on your iPhone. And you'll also notice other key details in the Mac Pro's aluminum housing. For instance, the buttons on top. You see you have a little power indicator, you have the power button, which is clickable, so you just press that little button right there to turn on or off. And then you have two Thunderbolt ports on top, which is super convenient. You also have this little latch right here, and that's what you use to remove the aluminum housing and access the internal components inside the Mac Pro. And that's the great thing about the design of this aluminum housing. It's easy to remove. Instead of having to rely on some sort of screw mechanism, Apple includes that handy top latch that you simply twist and lift to release the aluminum housing from the stainless steel space frame. All right, so enough talking about it. Let me just show you how it works so you can see for yourself. So you just lift up, twist, and then remove, just like that. No screws to open up. You're not going to cut yourself on sharp edges of the case trying to get inside. This couldn't be easier. And it's also just as easy to replace the housing as well. Just slide it down like that, lock it into place, and you're good. What do you guys think about the design of the Mac Pro? Let me know down below your thoughts and opinions. Okay, so let's talk about the stainless steel space frame. It's safe to say that this is the true starting point of the Mac Pro design. This frame, which starts at the feet and extends all the way to the handles, supports the system and provides crucial interior mounting points. And even if you don't splurge on the $400 wheels, the handles make the Mac Pro fairly easy to move around, even though admittedly this is a very heavy machine and it still may be a struggle for some folks. But the great thing about the stainless steel frame is that it provides the end user with unobstructed 360-degree access to the interior components of the Mac Pro. That makes installing and maintaining system components much easier than it is on a typical PC tower setup. Apple's design gives users lots of room to work with internally. Complementing the easy access provided by the stainless steel frame is a dual-sided logic board, and this makes it easy to access components installed inside the Mac Pro. On one side of the logic board, you'll find the processor, the graphics, and PCIe expansion, and then on the opposite side, you'll find things like storage and memory. So that makes it so there's enough room to move around. The components aren't cramping each other's style. There's plenty of room to work with. While the Mac Pro isn't silent, it is whisper quiet, and you'd be hard-pressed to hear it without putting your ear up to it. Apple employs the use of 3 axial fans that move air across the CPU and GPUs in order to keep them cool. And that means that the MPX GPU modules don't need dedicated fans, so everything stays quieter. The exhaust system works across the entire system to keep things cool. Now let's talk about perhaps my favorite part about the Mac Pro. Actually, there's no perhaps about it. It is my favorite part of the Mac Pro: expandability. I mean, when's the last time you had a Mac that could accommodate so much expansion? Of course, it all starts with the CPU, and Apple offers upgrades from the base 8-core model all the way up to 28 cores. Now, that's not the exciting part. The exciting part is the prospect that we'll actually be able to upgrade these CPUs ourselves later on down the line. Right now, it's probably not very cost effective to do so, but once prices drop on those server CPUs, it might make more sense to upgrade the CPU yourself later on down the line, especially if you have one of the lower end CPU configurations right now. Stay tuned for more details. Another great thing, unlike the iMac Pro, you can easily upgrade the RAM in your Mac Pro yourself. For instance, I added an extra 64 gigabytes of RAM, something that would normally cost about $1,200 from Apple for only $200. That is one of the best things about this Mac Pro. But it doesn't stop there. PCI Express expansion slots are abundant inside the Mac Pro. So that means you could slap in something like this that gives you 4 USB-A 3.1 ports. Or you can add something like this that gives you 4 USB Type-C ports, which is super convenient to have. Really, the sky's the limit. You could add capture cards, network cards, whatever. You can even add additional storage via PCIe. I'll have more on that bad boy later. It is impressive, let me tell you. You can even add GPUs. Yeah, like regular standalone GPUs. You can even add NVIDIA GPUs if you're willing to run boot camp, that is. Sorry. And not only does the design make it easy to access the internal components, but you also have these captive screws that hold the slot covers in place. So you're not gonna lose a screw. That is so nice. So they're captive, so the screws stay in place. And here's what it looks like up close. So once that's removed, you just remove the slot cover. And we're just gonna add these 2 cards. The 2 I just showed you, the 2 USB-A cards from Sonnet. So we just lock them back in place and we're good, that's it. Now we have way too many USB ports, way more than we'll ever use probably. And that's what makes me want to recommend this machine over the iMac Pro, even the base model, because of expansion. All right, so we have those MPX modules, which are exclusively designed for the Mac Pro. The MPX modules are impressive, except for the one that comes with the base model Mac Pro. It's pretty terrible, but it does have 2 onboard HDMI 2.0 ports. It also enables display output for the 4 onboard Thunderbolt 3 ports on your Mac, and an MPX GPU is actually a requirement to use those ports for display output. But the cool thing is that you have a dual connector. So you have your typical PCIe connector, but you also have this MPX connector, which provides up to 475 watts of power. So this thing is powered by the board itself. There's no auxiliary connection necessary. There's no fan, so it stays nice and quiet. It's a pretty cool little deal there. But you can also upgrade to the Radeon Pro Vega 2 MPX module, which is going to be much faster. It has 4 onboard Thunderbolt 3 ports. It's going to set you back about $2,400 if you buy it after the fact. There's also the Radeon Pro Vega 2 Duo MPX module that actually has 2 GPUs on the same board, as you can see there. And it has 4 onboard Thunderbolt 3 ports. Obviously a lot pricier, but if you really want to beef things up, you can go that direction. You can actually add 2 of those things for some really crazy performance. And there's also the Apple Afterburner card, a dedicated hardware accelerator for ProRes workflows. And no surprise here, the Mac Pro has Apple's T2 security chip. It has secure enclave, secure boot, and various controllers like the storage controller all on a single chip. And speaking of storage, Apple provides a 256GB SSD on the base model Mac Pro. You can see it right there. And as you can see on the base model, there's an empty slot there. Apple's built-in flash storage is encrypted by the T2 chip, and it's not user upgradable. So definitely buy as much as you need up front. I recommend 1 terabyte. So the power supply for the Mac Pro is located at the very bottom of the chassis. You can see it right there, that little black skateboard looking thing. It looks odd, but folks, this is a 1.4 kilowatt power supply inside this Mac Pro, which means you can pretty much throw anything its way and it's going to be able to handle it with no problem. Another thing I love about the Mac Pro is all the different ports you get. Like inside the Mac Pro chassis, you can see you have a couple of SATA connectors there. You also see on the outside, there's an I/O board that Apple includes. It has 3.5mm headphone jack, a pair of Thunderbolt 3 ports, a pair of USB-A ports, and dual 10GB Ethernet ports. And as we showed you at the outset, there is a Mac Pro exclusive Magic Keyboard and Magic Mouse. There's also a Magic Trackpad that you can add on during the purchase process. But the cool thing, the really noteworthy thing, is that you get black keys on a silver chassis. So of course that matches the aluminum housing on the Mac Pro. Now the iMac Pro has a similar keyboard, except it uses space gray instead of silver. And the Magic Mouse follows the same pattern. You have the black top portion of the Magic Mouse while everything else is silver. Personally, I think I prefer the silver and black color versus the space gray and black color. I just thought that looked a little too dark, whereas this is just like the perfect balance of the two. And you also get this lightning cable, which is a braided cable, which gives it a very high quality fit and finish. Alright, so Apple sells third-party components for the Mac Pro on its website. So for instance, here, if you scroll down, you're going to find a couple of components from our friends over at Promise. Now, I use the Promise Pegasus to store my libraries in Final Cut Pro 10, but this right here is an internal MPX module. It's a RAID array, basically 32 terabytes of spinning disk storage right there inside your Mac Pro. I imagine it would be pretty quiet as well. So basically a Promise Pegasus inside your Mac Pro. How cool is that? And then you also have this right here, which is an 8 terabyte internal storage enclosure. This is for SATA drives, so obviously not as fast, but does come with an 8 terabyte drive, and you have the option of adding an additional drive as well. So I imagine that this is just the very tip of the iceberg, just the start for Mac Pro accessories. Now, the iMac Pro is a beast, right? No question. It has that 5K display, but you're stuck with that 5K display. Whereas with the Mac Pro, you're not forced to have that 5K display on your desktop if you don't want it. So that's sort of the nice thing. Obviously, it can be a downside as well because you have to buy a display if you don't already own one. But depending on your setup, it can actually be a very positive thing as well. So what's my take on this whole Mac Pro thing? Personally, I think this is the machine you want to get if you're looking for a pro machine. Like if you're looking in iMac Pro territory, I think you should highly consider this machine over the iMac Pro. Now, obviously, the iMac Pro has advantages of having that built-in display, having everything just enclosed in that chassis, but you're more or less stuck with whatever you buy on day one. Obviously, Thunderbolt 3 exists for external expandability, but with the Mac Pro, you get not only Thunderbolt 3 expandability, you get internal expandability. You get basically unlimited configuration capability with this machine. Even if you buy the base model, it is still an incredible machine from an expandability standpoint. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section. This is Jeff with 9 to 5 Mac.